Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
The thing about Christmas at my brother Mike's house is that it's always felt more like a corporate banquet than a family gathering, shiny, crowded, a little too polished, and just fake enough that it leaves a bad taste in your mouth long after the pie. The house is big, modern, and reeks of that sterile luxury you see in real estate magazines, with its gray countertops and soulless open-plan kitchen. There's always jazz playing through hidden ceiling speakers, and Julie, my brother's wife, greets everyone like she's running for mayor of Stepford. I walked in, arms full of food I cooked myself, like I do every year, knowing full well half of it would end up scraped into the trash, untouched. Still, I smiled. I always smile. That's my role in the family: bring the food, say thank you, and make sure no one ever notices the tremble in your hand when you pass the mashed potatoes. I took my usual seat at the corner of the long dining table, where I could see everything without being too close to the spotlight. Mike sat at the head, naturally, carving the turkey with a practiced arrogance that reminded everyone just whose house this was. His kids, 3 of them, loud and always performing, joked and shouted across the table, interrupting each other constantly, while Julie cooed over everything like it was the first Thanksgiving on Earth. My mother was there too, holding her wine like a lifeline, laughing just a half-second too late every time. I sat in my usual quiet way, nodding at small talk, chewing carefully, pretending to enjoy the sweet potato dish Julie bought frozen from Whole Foods and passed off as homemade. It was after the plates were cleared, when the candles had burned halfway down and the wine had done its job, that Mike decided to deliver his little punchline. He stood up, fork in one hand, wine glass in the other, and tapped the rim just loud enough to silence the room without seeming like he was trying too hard. Everyone looked at him. They always do. He thrives on that attention, the kind of man who never really got over being prom king. "I just want to say something," he said, with that half-smirk he gets when he thinks he's clever. I look around this table, and I see success. I see family. I see people building things, building futures. Some of us, he paused, glancing at me in a way that wasn't even subtle, are out there grinding every day, running businesses, raising kids, creating legacies. Then came the line, like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. And some of us just show up with casseroles. Laughter. Not explosive, but enough to cut through me like a knife that had already been sharpened. Julie chuckled with that high-pitched fake laugh she saves for social media videos. Even my mother gave a soft chuckle, though she didn't meet my eyes. And me? I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just smiled, politely, like it didn't matter. Like I hadn't just funded that man's kids' therapy bills last month. Like I hadn't just paid for the down payment on their daughter's first year of college. Like I hadn't canceled my own dental work because Julie called me crying about a bounce check. They didn't know. They never asked. They never knew that when their credit cards failed at the pharmacy, it was me who quietly wired the difference. That when Mike forgot to pay for Emma's textbooks, it was me who ordered them with next-day shipping and pretended they were from his business account. That I hadn't taken a proper vacation in 8 years, because every damn time I had a little saved, another emergency call would come in from their house, like a fire alarm I couldn't ignore. But I kept smiling. I didn't say a word. I nodded, picked up my glass, and toasted right along with them. To family, I said softly. No one even noticed. Later that night, when everyone was drunk or asleep or pretending to be both, I sat on the guest bed with my back against the wall and opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me like bruises. Over the last 5 years, I had spent more than $60,000 bailing them out. Quietly. Without thanks. Without even the decency of a Christmas card signed with more than a scribbled name. And for what? So Mike could laugh at me over stuffing? So Julie could throw back her head and pretend I didn't matter unless I was paying for something behind the scenes? I started with the big things. Tuition? Cancelled. I was the cosigner on that plan, and I pulled out so fast the confirmation email almost burned. The therapist sessions I'd been covering under my own insurance? Gone. I wrote a formal withdrawal to the clinic and explained the patient would need new financial support. The emergency fund I kept for the kids, a side savings account I set up in their names, drained. Transferred it all to my main account. That last one stung a bit. I really did care about the kids, at least 2 of them. But kids grow up. And if you raise them to see generosity as obligation, then they're not really innocent, are they? I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a message. I just pulled the plug on a system that had been bleeding me dry for years while they clinked glasses and took family selfies without ever once asking if I was okay. Merry Christmas, Mike. Next year, you better bring your own damn casserole. The first time I wrote a check for Mike's family, I remember it clear as a glass window before the storm. Emma had broken a tooth at cheer practice, and their insurance had lapsed without Julie realizing it, or so she said. It was $840, and I sent it without blinking because the idea of Emma sitting through pain or skipping school because of something like that made my stomach twist. That was 8 years ago. I remember because it was the same week I'd almost put a deposit down on a little fixer-upper in Vermont, the kind with peeling white paint and a porch you could read a book on in the fall, but I told myself, next year, Lisa. That was always the lie I lived inside, next year. After that first check, the requests came more often, never really direct, never aggressive, more like little sighs over coffee, little hints like, ugh, the boys need cleats again, and I swear they grow out of shoes faster than I can blink, or Julie's car is making that sound again, and Mike's too proud to ask for help. So I would quietly send 100 here, 200 there, always under the table, never acknowledged in public. The kind of help that's invisible until it disappears. I kept records because something in me always knew I would need to. I had a folder, digital and physical, labeled just in case. It had receipts from orthodontists, school fees, soccer camps, even that overpriced leadership retreat Julie swore would change Josh's future if only he could go. I remember that one clearly because I was short on rent that month and had to pull from my emergency savings to cover it. I didn't even tell them that part. I told them I was glad to help. Over the course of 5 years, I was sending roughly $270 a week, which, let's see, that would be about $100,000 in total, right? Give or take. That's not even counting the random birthday gifts, holiday surprises, the time I paid off a delinquent light bill so their power wouldn't be shut off before Christmas. And not once, in all those years, did anyone sit down and say, Lisa, this must be hard for you. Not once did anyone ask how I was managing. Because people like me don't exist in families like ours. We orbit, we support, we enable, but we are not seen. And the real slap in the face? The moment that made me sit down on my kitchen floor and laugh like something inside me cracked? It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was tired from work, sorting through emails, and I got a text from Julie. Or rather, I got a text meant for someone else. It said, Auntie Wallet came through again. Thank God she doesn't have her own kids. She might actually keep her money. It took me a second to realize what I was reading. And then it hit me that was my nickname. That's what they called me behind my back. Auntie Wallet. Like I was some sad little spinster who existed only to fund their mediocrity. Like I didn't have dreams or needs of my own. Like I didn't matter outside of what I could provide. I stared at that message for a long time, long enough for the screen to go dark and my reflection to stare back at me. It was the kind of moment that replays in your head long after the apology comes, if it ever comes. For the record, it didn't. Julie tried to play it off, said it was a stupid joke, that we all know your family, Lisa. But it was already too late. Once someone calls you a wallet, you don't go back to being a person. I wanted to scream, I really did. But screaming isn't my style. No, I prefer silence. Silence gives you power. Screaming makes you look crazy. Silence lets you make decisions while they think you're still the same old pushover. So I just said, no worries. And then I started making a list, not of what I'd given, but what I'd given up. Like the tiny white house with the porch in Vermont, where I imagined growing old with books and coffee and peace. Gone. Like the photography class I canceled twice because the kids needed new tablets for school. Like the trip to Oregon I once planned with a friend, but backed out of when Julie hinted they were barely making it that month. I looked at that list and realized I'd been living a life I didn't choose, one designed around someone else's chaos. And the worst part was how proud they were to ignore it. Mike strutted around family gatherings like a self-made man, never mentioning the checks, never nodding my way when he bragged about how well the kids were doing. I was invisible. Except when they needed money. Funny how they call me broke when I've been funding their lifestyle like a damn sponsor. Let's see how well the machine runs now that the engines walked away. The first call came just after lunch on Monday, one of those cold gray afternoons where time stretches and you feel like the whole world is paused in some kind of slow-motion fog. I was at work, in my little corner office with the drafty window and the fake plant that had been dying for 2 years, but refused to actually give up. I was sorting through resumes, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone started buzzing like a trapped fly under glass. 5 missed calls from Mike, 2 from Julie, and 1 voicemail that was basically just heavy breathing followed by a barely restrained, "What the hell? Lisa?" I didn't call back. Not right away. I let them stew, because I knew exactly what this was about. The tuition plan I'd co-signed for Emma, the one Mike never mentioned in public, like it was something that had just magically appeared to help his daughter glide into college, had officially been canceled. The final nail in that coffin went through when I submitted the withdrawal forms over the holiday weekend, and by now the automatic notification emails would have reached the school's billing office. Who would have promptly reached out to Mike with news he wasn't used to hearing? That someone had stopped cleaning up his mess. Eventually, I answered. Not because I felt like talking, but because I wanted to hear him squirm. "Are you out of your damn mind?" he barked before I even said hello. His voice came through the speaker like a car engine backfiring, loud, messy, angry, and full of fumes. "Emma just got an email from the school. She's been dropped from her financial coverage." "Dropped? You signed a damn contract." I took a slow sip of my coffee and let a beat pass. "I unsigned it," I said calmly, like I was discussing a parking ticket or a canceled magazine subscription. It was a voluntary contribution. Voluntary means I can stop. There was a pause, just long enough for me to picture his face, turning the color of undercooked steak. Then he practically screamed, "What the hell is wrong with you? You're messing with the kids' lives." I laughed. I didn't mean to, it just bubbled out. That desperate, exhausted kind of laugh you get when someone tells you a joke you already heard 100 times, but they still think it's clever. "Oh, the kids' lives? You mean the same kids I've been raising financially while you bought jet skis, gym memberships, and new patio furniture every spring like you were prepping for a photo shoot?" I said it slowly, not because I was being dramatic, but because I wanted every word to cut the way his words had sliced through me year after year. "You don't get to scream about loyalty when you've been treating me like an ATM with ovaries." Julie's voice popped up in the background then. I couldn't hear the full sentence, but I caught the crying, the words selfish and ungrateful, and something about "we're family." That part made me want to break something, preferably something glass and symbolic, like a framed photo of all of us from that fake-ass barbecue last summer. "You said," I reminded him, "that Christmas is for the successful ones. You said I didn't belong. So what's the problem, Mike? Shouldn't be a big deal for someone as successful as you to cover your own kids. You're punishing them because of a joke." "It wasn't a joke," I snapped, my voice finally rising like a match catching drywood. "It was a line you meant. Don't insult both of us by pretending you were kidding. You've looked down on me my entire life because I didn't marry a sales guy and pop out 3 mediocre kids before 35. That was the moment I heard it, not the words, but the tone. That breathless panic underneath his rage. He'd never seen me this way. He didn't know what it looked like when I stopped playing nice. "I was there," I said, lower now, almost a whisper. "When Emma got sick and Julie had to go to that conference. Who took her to urgent care? Who stayed overnight at the hospital while you were at a golf retreat?" "Me." "You're making a mistake," he warned, like a man who'd lost control of the narrative. No, Mike, I said as I hung up the phone, I'm finally making a choice. I tossed the phone on the desk and leaned back, letting the silence sink into the space he used to take up in my head. The funny thing about people like Mike is they think screaming makes them powerful, but real power, real, brutal power, is the ability to walk away and not look back while they burn the bridge trying to chase you. That night, after dinner and a glass of wine, I sat on my couch with my laptop open and one browser tab clicked open to the IRS whistleblower submission form. Mike had always bragged about his creative accounting, how he paid guys cash under the table, wrote off personal vacations as business expenses, and somehow never got audited despite the fact that he never kept receipts. I never said anything before. But now? Well, now it felt like the right time to return the favor. I typed up a brief but detailed report, included everything I knew, and hit submit without a second thought. If he was so damn successful, he'd figure it out. Let's see how charming that smirk of his looks under federal investigation. The phone rang around 9:30 in the evening, just as I had finally sat down with a book and a cup of tea that had already gone cold twice. I didn't need to check the screen to know it was my mother. The ringtone was different, deliberate, one of those soft harp sounds I had chosen years ago in a weak moment when I thought I still wanted to be soothed by the sound of her voice. I let it go to voicemail the first time, not out of spite, but because I wasn't ready for the guilt. The second time, I picked up, already bracing myself like a soldier about to walk into a conversation loaded with landmines. She didn't waste time. My mother never did, not when it came to the illusion of peace. Her voice cracked before she even finished the second sentence. Lisa, what's going on? Mike is saying you've pulled out of the school payments and the therapist bills. He said you're trying to ruin them. She didn't ask if it was true. She already knew it was. That wasn't what mattered to her. What mattered was the disruption, the ripple I had created in her perfectly curated image of a family that holds hands through the storm, even when some of those hands are busy pushing others under the water. I closed my book gently and stared out the window. The streetlight cast a soft amber glow over the sidewalk, and I watched a stray cat dart between parked cars like it had somewhere more important to be. I took a deep breath before answering. Mom, I said, steady and measured, I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped cleaning up everyone else's mess. There was a pause, long enough for me to hear her breath hitch again, that shaky inhale that always came before she tried to shame me with softness. But honey, you're tearing the family apart. And there was the sentence I had predicted for years, but still wasn't quite ready to hear. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous to be accused of tearing something that had already been rotting at the edges for years. No, I said, quieter now. The family tore itself apart when nobody said a damn word while Mike humiliated me at the table. The family tore itself apart when Julie whispered my private help into group gossip. And the family sure as hell tore itself apart when every birthday, every emergency, every missed payment came crawling to me, and I helped again and again, and nobody even thanked me. They just expected it like I owed them a piece of myself. She started to say something, probably to defend Mike, to bring up how hard it is raising a family, or to slip in that classic line about how you wouldn't understand because you never had kids. I cut her off before she got the chance. Do you remember Josh's 8th birthday party? The dinosaur-themed one at that overpriced activity park. She went silent. Do you remember who paid for it? Still nothing. I did. You know how I know? Because I had to cancel my weekend trip to Asheville to cover the deposit after Julie forgot to process the payment. Still silence. I could picture her on the other end, probably sitting in that beige recliner she refuses to replace, phone pressed to her ear with one hand, the other clutching a tissue she always has on standby. I kept going. Remember when their water got shut off? The plumber bill? The car insurance lapse? I paid those too. Quietly. Because I thought that's what family did. I didn't do it for recognition, but I sure as hell didn't do it to be called Auntie Wallet behind my back either. She gasped at that, genuinely caught off guard. Who said that? Julie, I said flatly. Sent the text to me by mistake. Meant it for someone else. Never apologized. Neither did Mike. She mumbled something about Julie having a dark sense of humor, but I didn't care anymore. I had carried their burdens like a mule they kept feeding guilt and silence instead of hay. And maybe I was finally setting that weight down, maybe too late, maybe too suddenly, but it was off my back and I wasn't picking it up again. Later that night, as I sat back in bed, scrolling mindlessly through emails and work updates, I saw the message come in. It was from Emma, the youngest, and it made my stomach twist in a way I hadn't expected. Her name on my screen was like a ghost from a part of myself I hadn't decided if I missed yet. It was short. Just 4 lines. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I just thought you didn't care about us. I was wrong. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I set my phone down and just stared at the ceiling, blinking hard. Because Emma had always been different. She had the quietness I saw in myself, the kind of soft presence that gets mistaken for weakness until it's gone and suddenly everyone's choking on the silence it leaves behind. She was the only one who ever really talked to me without needing something. The one who sat beside me at family events and asked about my job, my friends, my stupid hobbies like puzzle collecting. I never thought she noticed. I was wrong too. And that's the part that hurt. Not Mike's fury, not Julie's pettiness, not even Mom's passive guilt. It was Emma's message. The realization that maybe, just maybe, my revenge had scorched someone who never lit a match in the first place. So I did one last thing. Not for Mike. Not for Julie. Not for my mother with her guilt-laced lectures. I wrote a check. Not big enough to cover everything, but enough to do something. I signed it anonymously. No return address. No note except a single line on the memo line. Use this for whatever gets you out of that house. Because love and loyalty don't mean silence anymore. Not to me. There was no tree this year, no frantic wrapping of gifts in the backseat of my car while pretending I hadn't forgotten someone's name, no burning smell of overcooked ham hanging in the air like disappointment. There were no fake smiles across the table or children shouting over each other while their father made another self-congratulatory toast. There were no group photos with forced grins or passive-aggressive potluck comments about who brought what and why. There was only me, a suitcase, a set of snow tires I paid to have installed 3 weeks in advance, and the silent highway that stretched between Massachusetts and a small cabin I'd rented in the woods of Maine. The cabin wasn't fancy. It had no cable, no internet strong enough to do more than send a message or two if I stood near the porch railing, and the heating system sounded like it had been borrowed from a submarine. But it was quiet and clean, and the air smelled like pine and untouched snow. I had booked it back in October when the first awkward silence hit after my mother mentioned the family plans without including me, followed by that too fast, but of course, do what you need to do this year, sweetheart. No one said the word uninvited, but it didn't have to be said. It was a mutual understanding, like smoke after a fire, the kind that chokes without burning. I didn't cry when it became clear I wouldn't be missed. In fact, there was something almost comforting about the clarity of it all. No pretending. No expectations. Just silence where the noise used to live. I packed books, 2 bottles of wine, a few movies on a flash drive, and warm socks. I also signed up to volunteer 2 mornings at a nearby dog rescue, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for because there was always some family thing that needed me, a ride, a check, a show of face at some nephew's holiday performance. But not this year. This year, I picked me. It snowed on Christmas Eve. Heavy, soft flakes that turned the trees into quiet giants and covered everything like a fresh page. I went out for a walk early that morning, boots crunching against the packed ground, my breath rising in front of me like smoke from a chimney. The only other footprints were animal tracks, winding through the trees in directions I couldn't follow. It was beautiful. It was cold. It was mine. When I returned to the cabin, my phone buzzed, just once. A voicemail. The number was familiar, but I didn't recognize it right away. When I played it, the voice on the other end was shaky but warm. "Hi, Aunt Lisa. It's Emma. I just wanted to say thank you. I got the check. I didn't know it was you at first, but I figured it out. I used it to move into the dorm early. I'm staying over winter break. I couldn't be there anymore. But I wanted you to know. I still love you." I sat down right there on the edge of the bed, phone still in my hand, blinking at the blank wall like it might give me the right reaction. My chest tightened, but not with regret exactly, more like a bittersweet warmth that hurts the way goodbyes do when you know you're doing the right thing, but wish you didn't have to. Emma had always been the one who saw me, not just as a financial safety net or a background character in someone else's family story, but as a whole person. And while I knew the damage I caused was permanent, the loss of connection, the cold looks that would probably stretch on for years, maybe forever, I also knew that somewhere in the mess, one good thing had made it through. And sometimes, one thing is enough. That night, I curled up by the window, a warm drink in hand, a blanket over my knees, and watched the snow fall like it had all the time in the world. No one texted. No one called. Not my mother. Not Mike. Not Julie. The family group chat, which had once been a daily flood of memes, photos, questions about events, and guilt-laced reminders, had been quiet for weeks. I opened it, scrolled for a moment, and then, without hesitation, pressed delete. It didn't hurt. But I didn't delete everything. Emma's number stayed. Because love, even when it comes from fractured places, is still real if it's chosen. I didn't need their permission anymore. I didn't need to be invited, included, or validated. I didn't need to keep holding up a structure that collapsed the second I let go. They wanted me silent, grateful, and small, someone who showed up with casseroles and checks and kept her mouth shut about the way she was dismissed. But I chose loud. I chose proud. And most of all, I chose gone. Funny thing about loyalty, it's only worth something when it goes both ways.